Today, I wanted to talk about sex, love, and intimacy. I have a tradition that on Valentine's weekend, so that means the time around Valentine's weekend, that I teach an annual class that's on relationships. And I think it's a great conversation to have. I think nothing is really better than to actually take the one you love to some sort of course where you can learn to communicate, you can learn to open, you can learn to have these really amazing conversations, that you learn what the other person really likes and wants. And you're in an environment that is totally safe and yet really fascinating and opening. I will be teaching a relationships class on Valentine's weekend, and I am honored to have with me Jennifer Stanchfield and Jason Smith as co-facilitators in this class. Jennifer Stanchfield is a feminine embodiment practice guru. She has been doing this for a really, really long time. And she teaches with me at the Wild Women Symposium, and she teaches specifically a feminine embodiment practice. It is incredibly popular, and it really supports women in expanding and opening their emotions and their feelings and their sensitivities. And why this is so important is that in our culture, women are told to kind of be quiet, to be still, to be nice. And women are intense. Women have complex feelings and emotions. We have drugs in our body called estrogen that makes us hormonally swing quite a bit every month. And learning to create space for women to give permission to those emotions in a healthy and constructive way that allows them to open and feel those feelings without putting your family through a lot is what it's all about. And it's also learning about teaching men in order to kind of understand us and to learn to love us when we're in those places. So we have her amazing husband, Jason Smith, who will be also co-facilitating at the workshop. And we've all joined forces because we feel it's so important right now in this coming age and the return of the divine feminine into better balance with the masculine, that we sort out some of the patterns that kind of get hung up in intimacy and relationship. And Jason Smith, in his own right, is a published author of an epic fantasy that's on Amazon. And he also has been doing a tremendous amount of work about maintaining his own really strong, centered, integrous masculine in the face of a powerful wife that he has, which is Jenny. So in our workshop, we've really tried to create a beautiful balance between the masculine and feminine so that the feminine feels really safe and heard and understood, but also the masculine feels really honored and respected. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give tools for both to understand each other, to love each other, and to find ways to open to that really beautiful, sweet vulnerability that is within each of us. I think in sexuality, it is so hard to kind of say what you want, and we get embarrassed and we get uncomfortable of because of the things that we might have in our mind that we want to try, but we don't want our mate to feel uncomfortable. And what we try to do is open a conversation that allows those conversations to come out in a very healthy way, because there's many ways to express sexuality and intimacy in really safe formats that don't challenge the safety and the security and the family. And obviously, this is not a class for young people. I mean, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in people who have done some work on themselves. They know themselves pretty well, and they know at this point that there's something missing, that they're looking for that really deep, passionate expression. I know for myself in my dance of my own intimacy, I, as a ballet dancer, was given incredible opportunities to express many characters. So I got to be bad characters in ballet and good characters in ballet. But in doing that, I actually got to express these archetypes inside that most women don't know how to express. And what I find is when you confront and get to be an expression of something that you're a little bit unsure about, you dispel the illusions around it. And when you are no longer using your life force energy to suppress parts of yourself, then all of a sudden you let go of judgment, you let go of fear. You suddenly realize that everything is love and that you really want a partner who can hold that container and really wants you to be that full expression in your intimacy. So Jason becomes a really powerful part of this relationships workshop because he is super masculine. He is super stable in his energy, and he is very, very committed to his woman and his marriage and his life. And he has learned how to embrace techniques that really help him stay centered when the divine feminine is being like a storm and running around, and to not lose his own center when that feminine is expressing itself, but instead he has learned to direct that storm and to give that storm of the feminine permission to express itself. And when that happens, women fall even more deeply in love with their man. So what we're doing in our relationships course is totally sexually safe. We are not doing sex. We are doing masculine, feminine typologies. We are going to be doing exercises that really help you learn how to bond, help you learn how to feel into the other person, help you kind of dive deeper by asking some really interesting questions that reveal fears as well as joys and wants and desires. So in our culture in America, I think we've been trained, we've kind of been a puritanical country, and we haven't really expressed that deep longing. I think that we think it's not okay to actually talk about what we like and what we want and what we're really going for. And sometimes you also don't even know what you're going for. And so that's why we are kind of teaching a class that's based more on a Vajrayana Buddhism archetype. Now we're going to keep that phrase a little loose because we're not doing strict Buddhism. We're actually learning some techniques, which is to use the metaphor that everything is love. Everything on this planet is love. Everything that you feel is love. It's just that sometimes love moves through our kinks and our quirks and our twists. And so, joy and ecstasy and, some things are God's love and light moving through the positive side. And then also there's kind of the darker side, where, we want that intensity and we want kind of a little bit more aggressive energy and sexuality, not in a painful way, but in a way that we want to kind of push against something, and we want to feel resistance, and we want to tease, and we want to play, and we want to kind of play a little bit more on the dark side of things. And that gives both the masculine and the feminine a chance to explore those edges. And so then it's God's love and light moving through kind of the darker force. And the whole idea is that they meet actually at the top, and that they all become one in that. So every one of you has known that, you had childhood upbringings or religious belief systems that said sex was bad. And then all of a sudden you had sex, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't so bad, right? So what we're trying to do is dispel the illusions that your mind has told you or that your ego has told you in order to keep your sexuality under control. So what religions learned a long time ago was that if you can control someone's sexual energy, you can actually control the person. And then you can use that person's life force and energy in the way that you want, which would be to build churches or to spread the religion or anything like that. And in all honesty, religion was trying to figure out how to control sexuality because it's sort of chaotic life force. And as we all know, that when you fall in love, things kind of get super crazy and they cut loose, and they're a little bit wild and they're a little bit out of control. So what we're trying to do is to create a container that allows for that wildness, but also it keeps you in touch with your higher functioning mind so that you become more a witness to the energy, and that you can direct that energy in a way that you don't break agreements, you don't hurt others, and that you find that middle ground where we can stretch and we can discover things about ourselves. So in the idea of sexuality and intimacy, and in the idea of Tantra, is that, all things are good when they come from a place of authenticity and vulnerability. And when you're not doing it just to get your own needs met, but you're actually doing it to open love with another person. So the whole idea of this weekend is, what can we do that opens love for you? And we will be working with couples on a very deeply personal level to explore what they're looking for, what they need, and what they want in order to find their deepest self. And sexuality is an incredible tool. I think intuitively all of us know that sex is more than just an act, that sex is about a merging of two energies together. When you breathe together, when you look deeply in each other's eyes, there's no way you cannot fall in love with that person, because that vulnerability is right there. And in our Western world, I think a lot of women have kind of stuffed down that vulnerability because they think that they need to be strong in the physical world, and that they need to, be directed, and they need to be responsible. And so a lot of women have kind of put on a masculine coat, and they don't know how to drop it completely. And I think that men, want to see that vulnerability, not in a weak way from their feminine partner, but in that way of that the woman actually trusts her man to open. Now, as I say this, I'm using masculine and feminine terms, but again, this doesn't have to be male, female. It can actually be, two women that are in love with each other, or two men that are in love with each other, because we're really dealing with energy that moves in people. So you can look at people and you can kind of see that they have a masculine sexual essence, or they have a feminine sexual essence. And I believe that in each of us, we really do have both, but we have a tendency to kind of lead or be dominated by a particular way or aspect or archetype. So we're going to explore those edges, and we're kind of going to blur those edges a little bit too, because even if you have a masculine sexual essence, you don't want to always be in control 24/7. It gets a little tiring. And so there's moments that if you have a masculine sexual essence, you would love it if your partner just kind of jumped your bones. And at the same time, the reverse is true. So that if you have a feminine sexual essence that loves to play the game of surrender, and loves to be taken care of and loved, and loves to be taken to the height of ecstasy and passion, that there also might be moments that you want to flip that around, and that you want to become more dominant, or to feel like you're more in control. And I think that that is the beauty of sexuality and intimacy, that there's always this play of energy. So, when you look at people that you go, wow, that person is really strongly feminine, or they're really strongly masculine. And that doesn't mean that they have to be a male or a female. So we're playing with energies and how energies move through the body, and what creates a really beautifully complex, deep, passionate intimacy is when both partners can recognize to play on that edge of polarity between the masculine and feminine, and to create shades of gray, and to bring those opposing sides together, and to kind of meet in this interesting play of duality. So I would hope that all of you find this interesting and that you want to show your partner this video and say, gosh, wouldn't this be great for the Valentine's weekend that we do like a total dance of intimacy with each other? And it can be a beautiful weekend where you deepen and you learn to love each other and you learn what the other really wants and what the other really likes. And even more, you learn how they love. You learn how they receive love and what makes sense to their own nervous system. I remember that many years ago, I asked my partner, I said, what is it that I do that lets you know that I love you? And I was really surprised by some of the answers, and he was surprised by my answers. So we don't also often know what is the person's language of love. And it's important to kind of start to learn that, because when you love somebody and you have matured through the levels of just trying to get your own needs met, you recognize that there is a deeper layer, that just getting your own needs met is actually not enough. When you become very mature as a sexual being, you recognize that if you really love somebody, you want to give them what gives them ecstasy, what gives them pleasure, what makes them super excited. And when you discover those keys and you learn to get out of your own fear and out of your own way of not being good enough, that fear of not being good enough, that fear of not being sexy enough, and you recognize that you are fabulous and beautiful and sexy and hot, and you kind of put that insecurity to the side and let yourself just discover each other, discover and play with each other, and make it a play. That I think that sexuality is one of the ways that adults, mature sexual beings, actually learn to support each other and heal each other. Sexuality can be an incredible release. It can be a de-stressor, but it also can be something that bonds you closer, because sometimes you don't even know what you need. And you need a partner that can feel into your deepest heart, feel beyond your resistance, and take you someplace that you want to go, but you don't even know you need to go. So wouldn't that be interesting to have a partner that you trusted so much because that you both came to this workshop and you learned to trust each other, you learned to trust the deepest heart of the other, you learned that they are going to try and they're going to make some mistakes, but in their trying from their deepest heart, you can't help but love them more, even if it didn't work at 100%. So this workshop is about learning forgiveness and also acceptance, and to step out of that needy, narcissistic, childish place, and to step into your truest, highest self, and to meet on the plane of passion, which is supposed to be about conscious beings merging souls. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I am looking forward to any of you that would want to come to the relationships workshop that's on Valentine's weekend. Have a wonderful day, or a wonderful Valentine's. Bye.